what India spends on healthcare, which is 4% of the GDP, and what India spends on infrastructure, which is 3.5%. So even if we are able to save half of it, just imagine what kind of value we'll be able to unlock. And I think while AI is an important solution, it is not a silver bullet solution. If we do execute it correctly, I think we can save a lot of money here. And I'm just talking about reducing the inefficiency. If we had to really change and bring about productivity improvement in day-to-day government services, then the kind of impact that we would be able to create is immense. How is AI transforming government? So at AMNEX, we have been working with machine learning for the last 8 years, and there are multiple sectors wherein we work with our customers in order to transform them. First one is agriculture. Now in agriculture, we've been working with various state governments of India. The objective is simple. How do I advise the farmer so that the farmer knows what crop to sow, what kind of agriculture inputs to give in terms of fertilizers or irrigation or pesticides, and third, when to harvest the crop. What we do is we get satellite images twice every week, and then we use our custom machine learning algorithms, which have been contextualized from an India perspective to understand what crops are going where. That's the first part. The second thing that we do is we have done a mapping of the entire crop phenology cycle for close to 38 crops. We correlate that crop phenology cycle with the actual crop growth in order to identify if the crop growth is slow somewhere. If we identify the crop is growing slow or there are any issues, we quickly understand that this could be because of lack of nutrition or it could be because of pesticides. So we give advisories to the government or the farmers directly so that they can use the right set of fertilizer or pesticides. The third thing that we do is we also help the farmer understand what the yield of the crop is going to be when the crop is about to get harvested. So that helps the farmer to take remedial action while the crop is growing. So this solution is impacting lives and livelihood of close to 8 million farmers across India. The second thing that I want to talk about is public transport. In public transport, our solution runs on 30,000 vehicles across the country. These are buses which are operated by SRTUs across states and cities. What we essentially do is we deploy GPS devices on the buses and help understand the way the buses move across the city in order to identify when the bus will reach at what bus stop. This helps the commuter know what is the exact time of arrival of the buses so that they spend minimum time waiting for the bus and actually spend time in doing productive work. The other thing that we do is very interesting. Now, all these public transit operators have two objectives to meet. One is all of them are looking to reduce their losses. And second is they are looking to ensure that people from far-flung areas within the city or from interiors of the state get to where the core business is happening or wherever there is employment. So these are two diametrically opposite objectives. One is to reduce losses, for which they have to fly buses on the routes that are generating enough revenue, but then they also have to go to the remote interiors wherein there will not be a lot of footfall. So we help all these public transit operators identify the golden mean of which are the routes that are having high footfall, at the same time which are the routes that are having a lower footfall. And then with that, we help them plan and schedule their operations in a better manner. The third solution that we have is from a traffic management perspective. Now, as somebody said earlier, that in India, the traffic patterns are a little different. On the same junction, you would have a BMW, you would have a Ashok Leyland truck, and you would also have a bullock cart. But it is extremely important that your signal cycle times are optimized correctly. A bullock cart takes about 12 seconds to cross that junction. A bike would take 3 seconds, and a bus would take 8 seconds. It's extremely important that your cycle times are optimized so that all these three mixes of vehicles can go through very seamlessly. So what we do is, based on the camera feeds which are deployed in junction, we identify to what density the vehicles are there at the junction, what is the mix of the vehicles, and then change the cycle time so that the traffic can move in a seamless manner. And this is not just optimized on a given junction. We create some green corridors across parts of the city so that if you encounter a red light somewhere, the next stop you don't encounter a red light again. So that's on the traffic side. On water and the environment side, we are understanding the distribution, the consumption pattern, and helping balance the input supply and the demand. So again, the use case is very interesting. Now, irrigation departments across various states plan to provide water to the farmer. Now, let's say, for example, in a state like Maharashtra, wherein some part close to Pune is growing a lot of sugarcane, some other part is growing millets. Now, if the government department is not necessarily aware of where the sugarcane is growing and where millets are growing, then what will essentially happen is water will be supplied to a place wherein water is not really needed. So what we do is, based on remote sensing data, we help the irrigation department understand where water is needed and in what capacity so that they can plan the water distribution accordingly. And the final use case is public welfare and citizen services. This is also a very interesting use case from India perspective. In India, multiple government departments give out schemes so that people benefit and last. There is social justice department which gives benefits to certain sections of society. There is healthcare department which gives benefits based on the health condition. There is education department which would want to give benefits based on the demography, so where the child is as far as the education journey is concerned. Now, all these departments are essentially planning their scheme rollout in a very, very siloed manner. The education department does not know what benefits are going to be given by the social justice. The social justice does not know what benefits are going to be given by the rural development department. So what we are doing is we are consolidating data in a single database called Golden Record by integrating data sets from close to 80 departments in most states in the country. And then the central planning is happening at the state level so that the department exactly knows who are the beneficiaries and what are the benefits that they have received from some other departments, so they can slice and dice the data correctly in order to ensure that benefits reach to people who need it the most. Now, we talk about AI and AI projects. Now, there are three stages in which the AI projects go through. First is basic implementation, where you implement a virtual assistant. Second is wherein you start doing some machine learning and start doing some predictive analytics. And third is wherein you have embedded AI in your regular workflow. The unfortunate part right now is that most of the government departments in India are somewhere between one or two. And while that is okay, the view right now is how do you make a pilot, create a project out of it, and get it to the masses and ensure that you have some media article which states that AI has been implemented by the department. And I think this is where the pain point is. AI is not just a process, it is a new way of governance. So if AI is implemented in your regular operations, you will operate your department in a different way. This is a similar movement to what happened with internet about 20 years ago. When e-office was implemented, and e-office, I consider e-office as a remarkable success because it has been made a part of day-to-day process. Similarly, AI solutions have to be made a part of day-to-day process. People often ask the question, is AI going to replace the government? The answer is no. AI is not going to replace the government, but governments which use AI are going to replace governments that are not going to use AI. So that is where the fundamental difference is. It's extremely important that government departments start considering AI and start using AI as a part of governance process and not just merely as a project that needs to be implemented. And what needs to be done for that? First is break the silos. Now, departments often start using machine learning models. Machine learning models are as good as the data that you give it to them. So, if the data is poor, your machine learning outcomes will be poor. I gave an example of agriculture earlier, wherein what we do is we use satellite imagery and weather data in order to identify how the crops are growing. And while satellite images available in the public domain, there are various Indian as well as private sector entities from Europe and US that provide these images. The agriculture department makes this kind of planning based on the weather data and from the satellite images, but they don't have the data from the irrigation department. Now, if they don't have data from the irrigation department, what is going to happen is the planning is going to take place only on a limited data set, as a result of which the outcomes are not going to be right. So, first is extremely important to break the data silos in order to ensure that you are using data from multiple departments. Second is rigid procurement framework. Now, AI initiatives are not like your regular projects wherein there is a date, wherein you do the inauguration, you go live, and then you move into an OPEX phase. All these projects are continuous improvement projects, wherein you started something, you built a model, and then over a span of time you improve that model. Now, departments today don't have a procurement model wherein they could onboard an agency based on continuous improvement. You can onboard an agency based on a project and a milestone, but you cannot onboard an agency based on outcomes or based on the improvement that they are going to deliver to you. So I think there is a little bit of a change required in the mindset of procurement as well. We need to move away from projects and we need to move into procurement based on continuous output. The third one is lack of explainability. Now, earlier, again, we heard an example from Delhi wherein facial recognition is a challenge. Now, a lot of procurement that happens in India happens based on one guideline from US called as NIST. The NIST guideline essentially tells you what is the accuracy of an algorithm, but it considers the accuracy of algorithms based on Caucasian data sets. These are essentially data sets based on European faces. Now, if the accuracy of the algorithm is decided based on European faces, and if such an algorithm is brought to India, it is not going to function. So, what is required from India perspective also is to build standards and build such benchmarks which are contextual and based on the way the Indian faces are. And once we do that, then we have created something that is tangible and that really captures Indian faces and recognizes it. So I think that is also required. Lack of explainability is a big challenge that we collectively need to address in the country. The fourth one is execution resistance. So a lot of such AI pilots go top down, wherein there is an intent to adopt technology, but then the intent to adopt technology at the top has to get translated into action at the bottom. And when will that happen? That will happen when AI again becomes a part of their daily processes. So it's extremely important that AI impacts operations and is not just used for dashboarding and reporting. So that's also one more important part. The fifth one is scaling pilots. So we are happy that we have implemented pilots, but I think the time has come for us to move beyond pilots and look at AI as a transformational tool to change the way governance is happening in the country. So, from an execution perspective, what is needed is better data and sharing data, having the right set of standards, having clear regulatory guidelines, and improved procurement processes so that we incentivize the outcomes and not just a project go live. Ensure that AI is integrated in the workflows and we are not just looking at heat maps or fancy dashboards. And we need to ensure that AI scales. We are not just limiting it to pilots. So, again, when it comes to AI projects, government floats a tender, selects a system integrator, and then the onus of project success is left to the system integrator. But then, AI projects will not be successful if you leave it to the system integrator. System integrators don't necessarily have the domain knowledge. And unfortunately, in the ecosystem, the system integrator and government entities have to work together in order to ensure that the domain knowledge is translated while there is a consultant in the loop as well, so that the AI models are created correctly that solve the real business problem and it is not a retrofitting solution wherein there is a technology and you identify what this technology can solve. It has to be the other way around, wherein tangible outputs are produced and the system integrators and the government entities work together. At the same time, it's also extremely important that there is enough of literacy or skill development that is done at the field force level so that the field force really knows how to start using AI. There are a lot of use cases around generative AI. I'll not go deep into it because of lack of time. But what is important is that generative AI should not be looked at as a solution to every single problem. It's important that we create a long-term roadmap from a Gen AI perspective and not just limit ourselves at virtual assistance. Virtual assistance is the first step, but Gen AI probably has a potential to even impact the way policies are formulated or the way the impact of policies is felt by the people. So a lot of simulation can be done around draft policies and real impact can be seen without really rolling out policies. So So I think that is also one use case that should be targeted. Finally, from an overall roadmap perspective, I think it's important that government agencies look at the outcome, procure with an open mind and not just implement projects, look at continuous improvement, and finally invest in skill development, not just at a senior level, but across the entire workforce. Finally, I want to conclude with this one statement that in future it is going to be the governments that use AI that will be selected more and more, and the governments that do not use AI will be optional. So thank you so much for your time.